Today, I will tell you a few scary bedtime stories that will make it difficult for you to fall asleep. The first story about a patient's records from a mental hospital. Dear Diary, I don't know how much time has passed since they locked me here and left me alone with my thoughts and these concrete walls. I'm writing this down in the hope that someone, someday, will read my words and realize that something is wrong here. I came here feeling powerless. My dreams haunted me like ghosts, and my sanity could no longer hold me. At night, when everyone was busy with their nightmares, I heard whispers, like something inside the walls, something trying to get me. One of my roommates, a guy named Mark, claimed that he saw ghosts roaming the corridors at night. He said that they came to him, and that they were hungry, and that they tried to enter his body. Mark no longer comes for his lunches. Doctors say he is gone. Tonight, as I lay in bed, I heard the same whisper. It's like an incomprehensible monologue that someone utters endlessly. I got out of bed and went to the wall where the sound was coming from. And then I saw him, glowing eyes through the cracks in the concrete. I don't know what it was, but it was trying to take over me. I felt it penetrate my mind, that it wanted my body. I screamed, but no one heard me. As it approached, I felt its presence, its coldness, its voice saying something incomprehensible. And then I came to my senses. I'm sitting in the corner of the room with this diary in my hands, and I'm scared. I'm afraid to sleep because I don't want it to come back. I don't know what it is and I don't know what's happening to me, but I know that I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Dear Diary, I will leave this story here in case I am no longer around. If anyone finds this, please help me. This place is something sinister, and I don't know if anyone can stay here without losing their minds. Dear Diary, the nights in this hospital are only getting worse. I'm afraid to fall asleep, but I can't live without sleep anymore. Those glowing eyes that I saw in the wall, they are coming back. They come to me in my dreams and talk to me. I can't decipher their words, but they read my deepest fears and desires, as if they know me better than I know myself. The doctors here think I'm crazy. They say it's just a hallucination and that I need to take medication, but they don't understand that it's not a hallucination. This is something real, something that exists outside of this hospital. I started exploring my room, and one day, under the mattress, I found a note from a previous patient. He saw those eyes too. In the recording, he wrote that they told him about immortality and the power that could be obtained if they were allowed to enter the body. But he gave up and is now dead. I'm not sure I can continue to fight these eyes. They become more and more persistent and aggressive. My strength is running out, and I feel that they will soon defeat me. I can only hope that my entry will find someone who can solve this mystery and get me out of here. I'm afraid this may be my last letter, Diary. If this happens, please remember me and try to understand what happened. This place is not what it seems. There is something sinister here, something that does not belong to this world. Second story about cursed artifacts. Recently, my life turned into a nightmare because of an ancient ring that accidentally ended up in my hands. I found it in an old chest that I bought at an auction. Strange things immediately appeared that I cannot explain. The ring appears to be made of a gemstone that sparkles like flame. Its beauty made me wear this ring forever. But every day I feel that it controls me, and not the other way around. As soon as I put on this ring, my life began to change. My dreams became full of nightmares where I saw ghosts and heard whispers. In the darkness, I could hear rustling sounds, as if someone was watching me. In addition, I began to have problems at work and in relationships with loved ones. My friends began to say that I had changed, that I had become more aggressive and aloof. In one terrible moment, when I was overcome with rage, I even hit my friend for no apparent reason. One day, in a fit of despair, I decided to try to get rid of this ring. I tried to take it off, but it seemed to be stuck to my finger. I began to fear that this ring wanted to hold me, that it wanted to become a part of me. My attempts to find information about the ring were unsuccessful. No one could tell me what this artifact was or how to deal with it. I was left alone with this damned object that threatens my life and sanity. I don't know what power is hidden in this ring and why it chose me, but I feel like it's trying to destroy me. My life has become a nightmare, and I'm afraid I don't have much time left. Every day is getting scarier, and I feel like I'm not the same person I used to be. The ring controls me, and I cannot resist its influence. My nightmares have become more vivid, and I feel like I'm seeing dreams that can't just be a product of my imagination. In one of the nightmares, I was in a dark room where the walls were bleeding with red smears, and in the corner stood a ghost with glowing eyes. He told me a scary story about the ring. It turns out that this is an ancient artifact used to take the souls of the living in order to give immortality to the one who wears it. He said that now the ring yearns for my soul. My friends and family no longer communicate with me. They are afraid of me, and my violent outbursts have caused them to turn away. I can no longer go outside because I feel haunted, and my dreams have become increasingly dark and confusing. I don't know where reality ends and the nightmare begins. At first I tried to look for ways to get rid of the ring, but it was too firmly attached to my flesh, as if it had become a part of me. Now it seems to me that I have completely lost my mind. I'm afraid that soon this artifact will take me with it into a world of shadows and nightmares. I don't know who will read these lines, but please warn others about the existence of this ring. Don't let him destroy other lives. My fate is already sealed, but I pray that others will not face such hell. The third story about the door to a parallel world. Today I want to share with you a terrible story that happened to me recently. It was something that I still can't explain. This story is about a door to a parallel world that I found in my own house. It all started when I began to notice strange changes in my home. The pictures on the walls changed, the furniture moved on its own, and I felt that there was always some kind of looming threat in the room. At some point, I noticed that there was a door in my house that was not there before. The door looked like an ordinary wooden door, but there was something strange about it. It did not lead to any of the rooms in my house, but it seemed to nowhere. The impression was that it led to a completely different dimension or world. I couldn't resist the temptation to open that door. Fear and curiosity fought within me, but curiosity won. I decided to go all the way and open the door. What I saw simply stunned me. Another world spread out before me. A world that was almost a perfect copy of my own, but with some sinister changes. This world was silent, as if all the lives had gone, and shadows hung everywhere, as if waiting for something. I began to explore this parallel world, and the deeper I went, the stranger it became. I discovered that things in my house were back here, and the pictures on the walls depicted events that I had never seen in reality. But the worst thing was when I saw myself in this world. My reflection in the mirror was distorted and dark, looking back at me with a menacing expression. This world seemed to reflect my worst fears and nightmares. I will leave what happened next for the next story. But my friends, if you ever encounter something like this, be careful. The door to a parallel world can hide incredible dangers and secrets that we cannot even understand. Ever since I opened the door to this ominous parallel world, my life has become a nightmare. Everything in this world was crooked and distorted, and I felt that I was not welcome here. I decided to return back to my world, but the door through which I came had disappeared. Now I was trapped in this distorted dimension where every sound, every shadow, and every movement seemed threatening to me. I struggled, trying to find a way out. But the more I searched, the more the world of this parallel dimension began to penetrate me. My thoughts became ominous, and my nightmares became reality. I saw shadows that were watching me, and I felt that they were waiting for me. Every day my world plunged deeper into darkness. I couldn't differentiate between reality and nightmare. Fear and despair took over me. I knew I needed to find the door back to my world, but how? And then one day, when I was already on the verge of madness, I heard a faint rustling, and I discovered the door that had previously disappeared. I rushed to her, but she disappeared again, as if she was laughing at me. I realized that I needed to go through my own fears and nightmares in order to return to my world. With every step towards the door, she disappeared and reappeared. It was like fighting my own nightmares. And finally, when I was already on the verge of despair, I was able to walk through the door and return to my world. It was a real journey through hell. And now I know that in some places it is better not to open the door that leads to a parallel world. My friends, be careful when exploring unexplored corners of the world. There are places you shouldn't go into and doors you shouldn't open. My story is a warning to all of us to stay on the safe side. The fourth story about the mysterious documents. Today I want to share with you a story about mysterious documents that I discovered in the archives of a university library. It was one of the most terrible and mysterious events of my life. I have been doing research in the field of history and anthropology for many years now, and this has led me to constantly search for documents and artifacts in various archives and libraries. However, what I found in the archives of this university library left me in complete amazement and horror. During my research into documentation of the ancient tribes that lived in this region, I came across a box of forgotten documents. At first, it seemed that these were just old notes and correspondence, but as I began to study them more closely, I realized that this was something incredible. The documents told of a strange, vanished civilization that predicted the future and practiced magic. They described rituals that included death and resurrection, and I realized that these were incredibly important records hiding horrifying secrets. As I immersed myself in these documents, strange events began to occur. I heard whispers and voices that could not be explained. In my sleep, I was haunted by nightmares about sacrifices and mysterious rituals. I began to feel that something invisible was watching me. When I tried to share my findings with my colleagues, they found nothing unusual in the documents and saw nothing in them except old papers. I felt isolated and alone because no one believed what I saw and felt. But the worst thing happened when I tried to unravel one of the mysterious rituals from the documents. I performed the ceremony as described in the notes, and something sinister began to unfold around me. I saw ghosts and heard whispers, and the world around me began to become distorted. As soon as I realized that I had lost control, I interrupted the ritual, but I left a part of myself in that place. Since then, I could no longer return to the archive, and I know that a part of my soul remained in that place, something sinister and unknown. Friends, this story serves as a warning that some documents and records may hide terrifying secrets, and it is not always safe to unravel them. Some things are better left alone and not risk your mind and soul. Ever since I performed that mystical ritual, my life has turned into a real nightmare. The mysterious documents that I studied left an indescribable mark on me, and now I feel that my mind and soul have been affected in some way. No matter what I do, I no longer feel the same in my body as before. A strange numbness and uneasy feeling are always there. Whispers and ghosts, which I had previously seen only occasionally, became my constant companions. I turned to psychics and occult specialists for help, but no one could help me. They said that I had discovered something that could not be touched, and now my soul was being affected by ancient forces. A certain artifact hidden in those records began to attract me. Every night my dreams are filled with nightmares about sacrifices and magical rituals. The things I saw in the world described in the documents began to haunt me in real life. The fear they filled me with is becoming more and more effective. Friends, I feel like I'm running out of time. Something ancient and sinister has begun to rise to the surface and claims my soul. I don't know how to deal with this anymore, and my life has become a nightmare. This story is a warning to all of us. Be careful when exploring unknown secrets and artifacts. The forces lurking within them may be more powerful than we think, and playing with them can lead to dire consequences. Fifth story. I have always been fascinated by genetics, the science that unlocks the secrets of our nature. But who would have thought that my passion for genetics would lead me to painting horrors that remained in my soul forever? It all started when I joined a research group at the secluded Omega Genetics Laboratory. Our goal is to study genetic mutations and anomalies in order to understand how they can lead to the creation of monsters, as some have called them. The laboratory was located deep in a dense, gloomy forest, far from prying eyes. The research team was small, just 4, including Dr. Eliza Kane, our brilliant but enigmatic leader. Dr. Kane had a strange mystique that was both unsettling and captivating. She dedicated her life to unlocking the secrets of human genetics, and her passion for the unknown was contagious. We worked tirelessly, often spending days on end in the dimly lit, sterile laboratory. The experiments were dangerous because we delved into the mysteries of our own DNA, going beyond the bounds of ethical science. Dr. Kane's obsession with her work was pushing us to our limits, and I couldn't help but feel like she was hiding something from us, something that was slowly consuming her sanity. One evening, as a fierce thunderstorm raged outside, Dr. Kane invited us into her laboratory for a revolutionary experiment. She showed us a bottle of a mysterious serum, her eyes sparkling with excitement and fear. She announced that this serum was the result of years of research and that it could unlock the darkest corners of human genetics. With trepidation, we agreed to become test subjects, each receiving an injection of the serum. I felt an immediate rush of adrenaline and a growing sense of anxiety as the serum began to circulate through my veins. Dr. Kane monitored our vital activity, a cruel smile playing on her lips as she observed our reactions. And then it happened. The room began to spin and I felt an unbearable pain, completely unlike anything I had ever experienced. I watched in horror as my hands began to mutate, stretching and contorting into something hideous like claws. My skin turned gray and a low, guttural growl came from my throat. Panic seized me as I realized that I was turning into something monstrous. I wasn't alone. The rest of the team went through the same terrible transformation. Dr. Kane seemed indifferent to our suffering, continuing to watch with an expression of scientific curiosity. I tried to scream, but only inhuman sounds came out of my distorted mouth. The pain was unbearable, and I felt my humanity disappear. As the transformation continued, I realized the true horror of our experiment. We turned into the monsters we were going to study. In the midst of my suffering, I realized that there was no turning back. Genetic mutations have taken possession of us, and now we ourselves have become the objects of our own perverted research. The future brought only uncertainty and an eerie existence as creatures of our own creation. I could only wonder what Dr. Kane's true purpose was and what other monstrous secrets she had yet to uncover. And so, I found myself involved in a terrible experiment that clearly got out of control. My transformation continued to deepen, and I felt my own essence dissolve into this new form. I could no longer control my thoughts and actions, as if I was plunging into a dark, bottomless sea, devoid of reason. Clutching a tiny flashlight, I looked around, trying to see anything that would help me find my way back. Suddenly, the light of a flashlight caught something strange, a black figure hidden among the trees. I realized that someone was watching me. My heart of terror was beating in my ears, and I did not know who or what it could be. With 3 deep gulps of air, I made a decisive move and pointed the flashlight in the direction of this figure. And then I saw him. It was a child, undoubtedly younger than me, in torn clothes, with dark eyes looking at me without expression. He stood motionless and silent, as if he was waiting for something. "Who are you?" I muttered, feeling the pulsation of fear in every cell of my body. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he smoothly raised his hand and pointed to a distant tree. I looked there and saw the word carved into the trunk: "Go." Without hesitation, I followed this strange clue and headed in the direction that the tree indicated. It seemed to me that the boy was watching me, but when I looked back, he had disappeared. As if under the influence of some hidden force, I continued moving, but I felt that something unimaginably terrible awaited me along the way. The forest still harbored its secret curse, and I was a prisoner of its sinister mystery. 7th story. Through the dark waters of the night, we headed towards a bay far from the busy shores. There were just two of us, me and my friend Michael. He has long told me stories of strange and unknown creatures in the waters of this area. And tonight we decided to set out in search of the truth. The water was still and black, as if darkness had swallowed everything around. Michael and I fell silent as our oars crossed the invisible border between the swamp and the bay. At this time of year, many shy fishermen claim to have heard strange sounds coming from the water and claim to have seen something strange, as if unknown creatures were hiding in the water. The rising fog gave the bay an even more mystical look. We slowly moved forward, penetrating deeper into the bay, and carefully peered into the dark waters. The sun had long since set, and we had to rely only on our flashlights. Michael periodically stopped and listened, but nothing could be heard except the sound of the surf. Suddenly, I noticed something strange on the surface of the water, and I asked Michael to stop. There were gurgles and splashes, as if something was moving underwater, but nothing was visible. Michael listened and said that they might be fish or frogs. He suggested we investigate this more closely. We approached the place where the gurgles became more noticeable. Suddenly, a huge sticky paw burst out of the water. We screamed and swam away from this place in horror. Whatever it was huge, and we didn't want to find out what it was. The water began to rise and explode, and we heard strange sounds that defied logical explanation. Something huge was swooning below us, and we felt like prey before a predator. Michael turned on the engine, and we rushed towards the shore, trying to get away from this terrifying threat. But something heavy grabbed our ship and pulled it under the water. We screamed and fought, but our strength was unequal. Everyone on the team suffered a similar fate, and our buried inner demons began to awaken. We were becoming creatures of nightmare, breaking free from Dr. Kane's control. She focused her cool attention on us, as if watching predators in their natural environment. After a few days, we regained our full abilities, but the cost was prohibitive. We were no longer human, and the monsters that surrounded us were the creation of our own exploration. The internal battle between humanity and the monsters we have become tore me apart. We began to explore our new abilities, which turned into a curse. There were poisonous secretions, superhuman strength and speed, but this only brought destruction and fear to those who were in our way. Every day my connection with humanity became more exhausted, and my mind became more dark and hateful. I saw myself in the mirror, the reflection of a monster with flickering, living eyes that no longer belonged to me. One night, while Dr. Kane was away from the lab for a week, the other monsters and I got together to do our own experiment. We were filled with a thirst for blood and revenge, and we went outside to find victims. The dark night was full of terrible events. We hunted unsuspecting victims in the forest, our screams breaking the silence of the night. We became the very monsters that others feared. But as the night progressed, I began to realize the horror of my actions. All we became was vile and empty. The unstoppable desire for carnage that fed our mutations destroyed the last vestiges of humanity within me. I realized that we needed to find a way to return to our normal lives before Dr. Kane found us, but it was almost impossible. Our actions brought upon us disrespect for people and copies of our own horror. This is how the first part of my story ended. I will continue later, hoping that I will find a way to bring back the humanity that we have so easily discarded. Sixth story. It will be dark soon. I feel the atmosphere filling with tension. Children are playing around, laughing, and I understand that they have no idea what happened in this place a year ago. Our parents forbade us to come here, but children's curiosity and restraint always defeated fear. To this day, no one knows what happened to that little Emily. She simply disappeared without a trace, as if the earth had swallowed her. The parents suffered madly, the search yielded no results, and local authorities could not find even a hint of her whereabouts. Today, we, a group of children, decided to explore this place that was legendary. It is believed to have been the site of many disappearances and was known by locals as the Forest Curse. But we didn't care. We all felt immortal. Our expedition began with the kind of adventure and joy that only children can experience. Intrigue marked our path, and endless forests invited us to explore. We played, climbed trees, and even tried to figure out where Emily might have disappeared. But as the sun slipped towards the horizon, our joy disappeared and was replaced by an implicit anxiety. We began to feel that the forests had a life of their own. The rustling of leaves and the singing of birds seemed eerie, as if they were drowning out our noisy voices. One of the boys said that he saw something strange between the trees, and soon we saw her, a pale girl standing in the distance. We were delighted, thinking we had found Emily. But as we approached, the girl disappeared into the dark thicket, as if she were a ghost. Fear began to overwhelm us. We lost our orientation, and the forest became hazy and ominous. It was already too dark, and we began to panic. We screamed and ran, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. Our voices were muffled by the gloomy silence, and we realized that we had lost each other. When I looked down, my friends had disappeared. Now I'm lost in the forest and don't know how to find my way home. Dark trees and shimmering shadows surround me as the forest curse awaits its next victim. My panic grew by the second as I continued to wander through the forest, pointlessly turning in different directions in search of a way out. Everything around seemed gloomy and impenetrable, and the shadow of the forest became alive and hostile. Through the trees, I thought I heard faint children's laughter and whispers. Was it Emily's voice? My heart beat even faster, and I ran in the direction of the sound. She had to be somewhere nearby. But as I approached, the voices disappeared, and I realized that I was completely alone. Fear and despair gripped me with renewed vigor. I couldn't keep running at random, not knowing where to go. In the night, the forest seemed alien and sinister, as if it knew my darkest secrets and intended to use them against me. But I wasn't going to be this place's next victim. I decided to stop and concentrate. Clutching a tiny flashlight, I looked around, trying to see anything that would help me find my way back. Suddenly, the light of a flashlight caught something strange, a black figure hidden among the trees. I realized that someone was watching me. My heart of terror was beating in my ears, and I did not know who or what it could be. With 3 deep gulps of air, I made a decisive move and pointed the flashlight in the direction of this figure. And then I saw him. It was a child, undoubtedly younger than me, in torn clothes, with dark eyes looking at me without expression. He stood motionless and silent, as if he was waiting for something. "Who are you?" I muttered, feeling the pulsation of fear in every cell of my body. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he smoothly raised his hand and pointed to a distant tree. I looked there and saw the word carved into the trunk: "Go." Without hesitation, I followed this strange clue and headed in the direction that the tree indicated. It seemed to me that the boy was watching me, but when I looked back, he had disappeared. As if under the influence of some hidden force, I continued moving, but I felt that something unimaginably terrible awaited me along the way. The forest still harbored its secret curse, and I was a prisoner of its sinister mystery. 7th story. Through the dark waters of the night, we headed towards a bay far from the busy shores. There were just 2 of us, me and my friend Michael. He has long told me stories of strange and unknown creatures in the waters of this area. And tonight we decided to set out in search of the truth. The water was still and black, as if darkness had swallowed everything around. Michael and I fell silent as our oars crossed the invisible border between the swamp and the bay. At this time of year, many shy fishermen claim to have heard strange sounds coming from the water and claim to have seen something strange, as if unknown creatures were hiding in the water. The rising fog gave the bay an even more mystical look. We slowly moved forward, penetrating deeper into the bay, and carefully peered into the dark waters. The sun had long since set, and we had to rely only on our flashlights. Michael periodically stopped and listened, but nothing could be heard except the sound of the surf. Suddenly, I noticed something strange on the surface of the water, and I asked Michael to stop. There were gurgles and splashes, as if something was moving underwater, but nothing was visible. Michael listened and said that they might be fish or frogs. He suggested we investigate this more closely. We approached the place where the gurgles became more noticeable. Suddenly, a huge sticky paw burst out of the water. We screamed and swam away from this place in horror. Whatever it was huge, and we didn't want to find out what it was. The water began to rise and explode, and we heard strange sounds that defied logical explanation. Something huge was swimming below us, and we felt like prey before a predator. Michael turned on the engine, and we rushed towards the shore, trying to get away from this terrifying threat. But something heavy grabbed our ship and pulled it under the water. We screamed and fought, but our strength was unequal. Huge gurgles and splashes floated behind our boat, and we realized that our ship had sunk for a reason. We were prisoners of something ancient and terrifying that lurked in the darkness of the bay. Michael and I fought with despair, trying to stay on the surface, but an invisible force continued to drag us into the depths of the bay. The water around us began to boil and hiss, as if the existence of some unknown creature was leading to even more terrible events. I managed to lift my head and look into the dark waters. Something large and shadowy was moving below, and I realized that we were witnessing something that could not be rationally explained. It was a huge, dark figure floating next to us. Michael and I continued to resist, but our strength quickly ran out. An unknown creature was carrying us to the bottom, and my brain was filled with terrible thoughts about what was waiting for us down there. The creature was much larger than any sea creature I knew, and its body was covered in scales that sparkled in the darkness. As we approached the bottom, the creature let go of our boat, and we fell onto the sand. Michael and I found ourselves face to face with this monster. His eyes sparkled in the darkness, and his breathing was strong and hoarse. The creature approached us, and we met its gaze. It was not aggressive, but its appearance was so strange and alien that we could not predict its intentions. It looked like an ancient oceanic predator that had survived in the depths of centuries. Meanwhile, my thoughts began to blur, as if the creature was affecting my mind. I felt that it wanted to tell us something, but not through words. It was a connection at the level of thoughts, and we began to understand his terrible message. But what it was trying to say remained a mystery. Michael and I stood there, numb with fear and uncertainty. We realized that our lives would never be the same again, and that moment in the bay would forever remain a dark memory for us. The continuation of this story remains beyond the boundaries of my memory, since this was only the beginning of a terrible adventure in unknown waters.